Welcome, welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ. Welcome to the Tuesday Nighters. Welcome to the book club. Welcome to the suggestion box. I think it's going to take me almost the entire time to start going through the different subsets of what we call ourselves now. This is week number 107 of the book club. This is week 32 of the suggestion box. And tonight it's 3 Nephi 27. Again, I don't know who suggested this, but I sure did love it, and I hope you did as well. So let's get to it. 3 Nephi 27 is one chapter. It's 33 verses, almost 1,300 words, 1,287 words. The question I had before I started to do the full review is, what is it that we're walking into? As we open this book up, what was the first 26 verses or 26 chapters like, and what did it have to do with? We have to remember who we're talking about here. This is not all of Joseph. This is a small fraction. It started as a small family and has grown into an entire people, 1/12, at least by way of representation of Israel, and they have been in the Americas for some 600 years. Now we know another people were found, but from the original, from if you will, First Nephi 1:1, we know that this family that moved and uprooted from Jerusalem has been here and their people for 600 years. They have experienced a lot. They've experienced both success and failure. They've experienced war and peace. They've experienced a growth of family. But then suddenly they experienced mass destruction. And this just occurred prior to 3 Nephi 27. Then, following that destruction, Jesus the resurrected condescended to the Americas. Now, it's not just recorded in 3 Nephi, it's also recorded in multiple books away from the church. Those who have recorded the stories from the natives, there are multiple books and sources and resources. You can Google this and look it up and or whatever search engine you use and look it up and see how many people acknowledge something. Something happened here in the Americas. These were not the people born onto this land originally, but they also were immigrants to this country hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Now, after this destruction for the survivors, everything changed. And when I say that, certainly their way of life, their loss of loved ones, we know all of that took place, but much, much more. Their hearts, their minds, their motivations, their perspectives, everything changed. And they became an awakened people, spiritually awakened versus what many of them may have been prior to this, which was sinfully asleep. Now we know that those survivors were not necessarily the most sinful because of the terminology given to them, but we also don't know what their stories were. We definitely know this: they were baptized after Jesus Christ came. They had been restored and they had been given a fresh start after great pain and great suffering. Now, our chapter, this is where we pick up for chapter 27. And our chapter begins from the very first verse in pure desire. Remember, Jesus had recently established his church. He had recently called 12 leaders. And now those 12 disciples, as they're called here in the Americas, because the original apostles were still functioning in Jerusalem, so he called them disciples here. They were seeking his truth. At the very beginning of this chapter, they turned to fasting and praying to get their answers. What they got was what they desired. They got Jesus Christ's attention. And then they got Jesus Christ's presence. He came to them and he asked them, "What is it that you're seeking?" And they told him their dilemma. And he asked, "Why is there a dispute?" He said, "The answer's been provided to you already." And then he expounded on the answer given. And he clarified the details of the required behavior. If, in fact, you're going to do what I asked, already have said and required of you, that you would name this after me. But if you do, there are behaviors that have to be followed. I didn't go through any of those in my overview because I thought those would be talking points from some of you. But he did tell them that the church and its purpose, and he said, my gospel over and over, was why God had sent him. He told them the church and its purpose, again, my gospel, was why he had sacrificed everything. He told them that his gospel was mankind's only hope, that it was mankind's salvation, that it must become, speaking to these 12, their purpose. And then he provided specific instructions on how all of this would take place. That instruction is not just for them, but for us as well. He told them he had already modeled the behavior that he expected from his followers. He even said, if you would, that there would be a reward. He would say, blessed are ye, or he said, blessed are ye. We will be blessed if we follow that modeled behavior. Told them to write, specifically these people, to write what they had seen already. And then he told them, continue to record so that this can be passed on to generations. And that these writings, which we know to be the record of Joseph, would establish the standard, more directly, his standard. And his standard would be that line of demarcation that would separate good from evil, follower from non-follower, failure from success. His standard would be utilized after he left, and he told them he was leaving. And he even gave a time frame, now. He said, I'm leaving now. But he did promise with that he would always remain accessible, available, and even he would reply. He said, if you ask, if you knock, that he would reply. He summarized with an overview at the end of the chapter of what they had accomplished in a year. From surviving destruction, remember, that had provided these people, identified as the more righteous, full access to him. Those survivors had been readied by this destruction to listen and to comply. The result? He approved. Now you may think that's small. I find that magnificent. His statement was this, and now my joy is great, even unto fulfillment. Or to fullness, I think is what he said. Because of them, the Lord was full. Now imagine hearing Jesus Christ say that to your face. Imagine him saying what else he added. Even the Father rejoices concerning these people, and also all the holy angels. Imagine if we were gathered together, or if just a few were gathered together, fasting and praying, and the Lord would come to us and exclaim these things, what that must have felt like. But he also expounded on the fact that man is man, and the natural man ultimately falls. He even prophesied in this chapter that 4 generations out, they would fall again. And so he left them with good, sound, direct counsel. Enter ye in at the strait gate. So imagine, just pause and imagine such personal interaction with the Son of God. Now, whether or not any one of us ever hear that specifically, I don't know. But I know this. He promised that if we should ask, ye shall receive. If we should knock, it shall be open to you. With that, we go from this chapter with a hope that God's doors are still open, that his ears are still open, that his heart is still open, and that he still rejoices in us. So if you have a question, ask. If you need to hear from him, just knock. All right, that's what I got from 27. What did you get from 27? I'm going to stop sharing so all of you can start sharing and we can start discussing this fabulous chapter.